everybody, David Ellefson here, Sofa King Cool.
All right, man, Sofa King Cool here with David Ellefson. How you doing, man?
Great, great.
That was amazing, the Basstory.
Thank you.
It's such a treat for the fans to go ahead and see you on such an intimate level.
Yeah, that seems to be the comment we get, you know, is that it's such a different concept. It's such a different thing, you know, in this day and age where, you know, as we get bigger, our bands, thank goodness, in popularity, you know, you can't help but sometimes just lose sort of the grassroots thing. And I think we do pretty good with it. You know, we do the meet and greets. We try to do as many fan experiences as we can. But I thought, you know, doing this right now in this season when Megadeth is off the road to come in and really get back to the, this is like the level of Killing Is My Business tour, you know, the Beach Cells tour. So to really come back at this level and just, I mean, that's what I feel like when I was like, oh my gosh, I remember playing Peace Cells in a room about this big, you know, in 1985 and 86. So it's fun for me, and fans seem to be digging it.
I mean, it's such a treat. It's like almost something that you would see like in a California show where you got the stories and then all these great artists get up on stage. You guys are just jamming out there, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it's like, why, you know, look, you know, the Eagles and, you know, these people have done it on VH1, these sort of storyteller concept, you know, but it's like, you know, you got, you know, car karaoke and, you know, these kind of fun things. But I thought, you know, let's kind of, this is really a way to bring all of it together with you. And the stories are the fun part of it. I mean, I really realized that in writing a book and when I do bass clinics and things like that. It's like, I'll do a bass clinic and I'll play 2 songs because everybody just wants to ask questions.
Right.
You know, so that's why I try to open it up. And quite honestly, the Q&A kind of depends on how drunk everybody is. You know, some nights they're a little punchy and rowdy, and other nights, you know, they're very subdued and they're just kind of listening and they want to just, you know, and then that's kind of a time to ask some questions. But like tonight was fun because fans were just throwing songs at us, and you know, it's like somebody on that stage knows some part of that song, and I pretty much know all of them. You know, so it's fun to just wing one out. Like tonight, someone, you know, asked about Liar, and so me and Tom just started playing Liar for a minute just to have it, and it's fun, you know. So because a lot of these songs we don't go back and really play a lot of these songs much with Megadeth because we're promoting a new album and we're doing other things, you know. So it's fun for me to keep sharp on the catalog.
Now, you actually set this whole thing up yourself. It's your touring agency, it's your artists from your label.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's all you.
Yeah, this is an Ellefson cottage industry here, you know. And you know, look, my partner Tom, I mean, he's wonderful. He's a big Megadeth fan from the 80s. And you know, I met him through years ago when I actually did artist relations for Peavey. He managed the band Chimera. And so we had dealings back, you know, in the early 2000s, and then we reconnected again in about 2014 or so. He had reached out to me because he was Shout Factory. We're doing a reissue of, actually they're doing a reissue of the Shocker movie, the Wes Craven Shocker movie.
All right, yeah.
And Tom really wanted to focus on the soundtrack because there was such great music on that. And Megadeth, of course, did No More Mr. Nice Guy, Alice Cooper song. So that was how we connected. I did an interview for it. And he reached to me, and that just struck up a friendship, and we just became, you know, heavy metal bros, if you will. And so Tom's been really good with, you know, really, like, we're a good team, you know, coming up with ideas and things that are fun for us, they're passionate, and, you know, and it's good, it brings me back, it always keeps me connected to, you know, when you lose your passion, when you stop being a fan yourself on some level, it just becomes a lot of hard work, you know, and they call it playing music. It should be fun.
Right, for sure.
Yeah.
And it definitely was fun up there.
Yes, thank you.
You could see it between you guys, the crowd and everything.
Yeah.
Now, you're keeping yourself quite busy. After this goes, you're going to go and do Attitudes and Altitude with Slash and else.
Yeah, a whole run in fact, in January. Frank and I will do a quick little stop at NAMM, and then we go to Shiprocked, and we're actually going to do a Basstory on Shiprocked with me and Frank. Because one of the things I'm now doing is expanding this out to bring other musicians in. I brought in my friend Felix Robinson, who is a bass player in Angel, which was Angel and Kiss grew up together on Casablanca Records, and doing stuff with Frank. Like today I went over to Johnny Chow's restaurant from Stone Sour. Yeah, and there's another bass player when I worked at Peavey, he was an artist of mine that I was working with, and I saw him in his very early days, and you know, him going through all the struggles of all these different gigs, and finally, you know, with Stone Sour just doing so well, and And it's, you know, to me, that's a base story,
for
you know,
sure,
of him.
definitely.
And now he's got a restaurant with his wife, and he literally came home from Russia right in, and he's slinging dishes and serving food, and that's kind of what I do with coffee. You know, I come off tour with Megadeth, and bang, I'm on the phone, and we're doing coffee, and we're setting up Basstory, and you know, putting out records with EMP, and that's, you know, those. So you know, it's like the saying goes, you know, if you do something you like, you never have to work a day in your life.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's kind of, that to me is the goal. Is it's just, you know, do things you're passionate about, and that just kind of keeps it all moving.
And after the Attitudes and Altitudes, you guys are going to go and play with Ozzy, man.
Yeah, I mean, I got kind of a busy couple of months in Europe. We got Shiprock straight over to Europe. We got some UK dates, some Europe dates. Then Slash was kind enough to put us on some dates, and he and I have been friends for many, many years. And he's one of the good guys of our business, you know, and obviously just a fantastic guitar player. And then from there, I'm actually going to stay in Europe and do another run of Basstory across Europe. I did about 10 days and kind of skimmed the surface a little bit.
Right,
and it's a little different over there. You know, that's what's fun about this is every territory, you know, and even in Europe, I mean, every country has its own sort of temperament.
Yeah, for sure.
So I'm going to go down to Turkey. I'm going to go to Italy, Spain, France, over to the Czech Republic. Even up to Denmark, and you know, so a lot of Germany, so a lot of hit a lot of different countries over there, and yeah, and then from there we'll you know, start ramping up for the Ozzy tour,
right?
Which is great as we're doing Basstory. I mean, everybody comes. They go, oh my God, I just bought my tickets yesterday, you know. So everybody, that's going to be one of the big tours of this summer, man. It's really going to be
definitely fun. Man, definitely. Now, squeezing all this in, you're doing a sequel to your book.
Yep.
And then you mentioned that you guys are going to Nashville to record a new Megadeth album.
Yeah, we're doing it now. We've been working on it, compiling riffs and putting things together, and you know, it's just kind of the process of the nature of how our songs work. Where, you know, we've never been a band where, you know, we get in a room and hey, bro, let's jam. You know, it's never been that. It's kind of, you know, creating a riff and an idea, and we sort of start piecing them together. And you know, we had really about 3 years of Dystopia, which is a lot, you know, for an album. So we're at this interesting, you know, kind of moment in the band where obviously people want to hear new music because we continue to make good records, so they want to hear them.
Definitely.
And yet they still, I mean, like tonight, you know, I've noticed at Basstory, I'll throw out some stories, and it's almost like a lot of people weren't born before 1985 or 1990, and I'll tell about, hey, did anybody see the Peace Sells tour? And it's like crickets, you know.
Right.
Like, oh my God, like this is a really young audience, and we're really blessed, you know. In 35 years of Megadeth, we're in our 4th decade. So four generations of Megadeth fans. So we've got really young kids, and it's funny, the young kids are going back and getting into the earliest stuff. They're the ones that are digging into the 80s and the early 90s. And then we've got fans, you know, probably our age who have grown up with the band. I mean, there was a day when I was junior. I mean, I was, you know, at 18 starting Megadeth with Dave. I was like one of the young guys on the campus, you know, and now I'm one of the elder statesmen of the genre, you know, and but it's so cool to have a whole, you know, world, kind of just a global tribe that we've all grown up together, you know, and it's great that the young people are growing up and wearing our shirts and listening to our songs. And, you know, they're hearing it on Spotify. They're not buying albums, you know. And young people don't buy albums. They buy one song or a couple songs, and hey, that's how they buy music. It's all right. It's whatever they do. It's however they do. Yeah.
They don't see CDs or records.
However, the vinyl thing is really coming back.
Yeah,
you know, I mean, I see the vinyl thing in young kids, and I'll call them kids. If you're in your teens, you're still a kid, thank God. But I see a lot of them coming up with vinyl, so it's funny, the ones that you see with vinyl, which could be almost anybody now, and then you see the CDs, and you're like, okay, you're kind of old school now, right? And then you see the cassettes, and even though cassettes are new, I mean, like the new Metal Allegiance album came out, and Nuclear Blast issued that in cassette.
That's awesome.
In a small run, you know, but it's like they know the die-hard, old-school heavy metal headbanger wants a cassette.
Right, for sure.
And so it's really awesome. So, and then of course, Thank God there's no more 8-tracks. Like that went away with the Buffalo, you know.
Yeah.
But you know, and then again, all the digital stuff now. I mean, I buy everything digitally. Even if I buy a, you know, Tom's a huge vinyl guy, so he'll bring me like an Angel album, or you know, he'll buy me a Ted Nugent album or something, vinyl, because I like vinyl. I don't really like the sound of vinyl, never did. I like digital. I'd rather buy it. I buy everything on iTunes. I buy it, I pay for it, and it's mine, and I have it with me. So I buy it. I support the cause, but like I'll pick up a vinyl or something, and I mostly just want it because it's kind of an emotional connection to my youth, you know, as a teenager when I saw a 38 Special record, you know, or a Skinner record, or Ted Nugent, you know, Double Live Gonzo or something, and I'll pick up one of those beat up, and I don't even care. I won't even listen to it. I'll just set it on my shelf and leave it there as just part of kind of my kind of going back and recollecting my old records.
Well, one thing I'm noticing is the kids are using these almost as a piece of art. You know, I mean, they're getting it and they're hanging it up on their wall, and they're saying this is, you know.
Hey, I mean, how many records did we buy, you know, just because of the artwork? I mean, when I saw Kiss Alive, it was like, you know, it's funny, there's a defining moment. And, you know, I kind of almost miss Led Zeppelin, because by the time I started, just my age, what age I was, Led Zeppelin, I remember going to it was a drugstore in a little town in Jackson, Minnesota, and they had albums and cassettes and 8-tracks. And I remember there was Kiss Alive and Zeppelin Presence. And based on the album cover, Kiss Alive won out. You know? It was just like, come on, I want to do that. That's way more fun than this kind of artsy album, you know. And of course, I knew a Led Zeppelin, but it's like, you know, so I mean, Kiss won me over just because of that. Same with AC/DC. When Angus is shoving a guitar in his chest, he's dead on the back with blood all over. I'm like, dude, that's awesome. You know. So and you know, same with Judas Priest, that Unleashed in the East. I mean, those are just a few key albums for me. When I saw the cover of Unleashed in the East, I'm just that was like a whole new level.
Right.
And then the Iron Maiden records came out, you know, with that Derek Riggs artwork, and you're just like, wow, like that went to, and that really obviously had an impact on what we do in Megadeth, you know. Seeing, obviously the mascot thing was cool, but having an identifiable figure that, even if the band photos weren't there, that figure, and in our case Vic Rattlehead, you know, that's as much a part of that. That's a representation of who we are when we can't make it for the photo shoot. You know what I mean? Like, have Vic on the cover, and I love it. I think it's such a cool thing, man. And that art, I look out in the audience tonight, I see the Megadeth T-shirts from Peace Cells and So Far So Good So What. And, you know, that artwork is almost iconic as. You know, obviously they know me and Dave, they know various members through the year, but I mean, you know, that album artwork, man, I mean, it's like Motorhead and the Ramones. I mean, these logos, you saw young kids wearing these shirts around, they probably never even heard the Ramones or Motorhead, but it was cool to have one, you know, and I see the Megadeth shirts are starting to be like that as well now.
That's, you know, it's one of those things where they see it, they think it's cool, and it's out there.
It's like a cultural impact, you know what I mean? It's like wearing a Fender, or, you know, you see like alternative guys wearing like John Deere hats. It's like, have you ever even driven? I grew up driving John Deere on a farm, right? And I see like city kids with a John Deere hat, like alternative guys. And somebody's like, that's the look, you know what I mean? And so it's kind of, it's just interesting how things become culturally cool, and it's just so cool that, you know, the Megadeth is one of those brands, if you will, one of those iconic brands that people go to.
If you know rock and roll, man, you know Megadeth.
Yeah.
Now, one thing I wanted to ask you is, Ozzy's doing the farewell tour. Slayer announced they're retiring. Kiss just put out going to go on a 3-year last tour.
Yeah.
As a rock star, do you really get a chance to retire?
I mean, I look at Ringo, you know?
Right, yeah.
He ain't retired, you know, and he's not really even putting records out or anything, but he's a Beatle, man. I mean, it's like, he's Ringo till the day he leaves the earth, you know, because that's just what you do. And again, his friend Paul McCartney, he's been very active and prolific putting records out. But, you know, either way, it's like, you know, you're part of a cultural shift, you know what I mean? You changed history. And it's like when you're a guy in a band that changed history, which I think, let's say the Big Four is, you know, and I think 100%. You know, every one of us in that Big Four, we have our place on this cultural shift, you know. And you know, I remember years ago when we were in Buenos Aires, and the manager of the Hard Rock Cafe. You know, we're band's super popular down here, and we went over to do a meet and greet, and you know, we realized like managers of corporate entities are huge Megadeth fans, and this was back in the '90s.
Right.
And I kind of went, wow, like our fans grew up, they went to college, they got real jobs, they work in corporate settings even, but they're full-on headbangers, you know. And that was, you know, that's what it really hit me, like, you know, you don't have to just, you know, be a long hair headbanger. Like, you can be a short hair corporate headbanger.
Right.
Because it's what's in your heart, you know, and what you grew up with. And, you know, so it's, you know, I don't know, man. I get out of bed every day, and to me, I just immediately go to my phone, my email, like what's coming in today, you know, phone calls we make, and pick up a guitar, play, write a riff, work on a thing, and you know what I mean? So to me, it's kind of like the creative wheels are always turning, either creatively in business, creatively in music, creatively to put something together like Basstory. And I'm on stage thinking about things we can do next week in Florida.
Right.
You know, just like being on stage in Megadeth, I'm always going, you know, why don't we put that song in? You know, it'd be great if we had some lights down here. Maybe we could add a, you know, we're always thinking about improving the show, you know, and I think, like, as long as they want to see you on the stage, as long as they want to hear an interview, as long as they want that, I mean, why would you ever say no?
Definitely, man. Definitely. Now, with all the great tracks that you guys have, how do you put together the set list for Megadeth?
You know, it's funny. There's like, you know, probably 18 to 20 just kind of go-to songs. There's certainly a dozen of them for sure. And I mean, you know, Symphony, Peace Sells, Holy Wars, Hangar 18, Trust, you know, the ones that have been just the staple in the set. And you almost can't play a show without them. I mean, it just doesn't feel right, you know. And I think I noticed, you know, in when Dave was you know, rebuilding Megadeth with The System Has Failed and United Abominations, I saw him really being forward in, because we had done so many of these, even through Cryptic Writings. Cryptic Writings was kind of a big turn because we started headlining a lot of big radio festivals, but by Risk, it turned again. You know, heavier bands like Disturbed and Godsmack and Cold Chamber and younger bands are coming up. And there was always a struggle to stay out of the clubs and stay out of the theaters and really keep it up in the arena level.
Right.
And, you know, I think Gigantour is probably, you know, a really good effort to, like, okay, how do we do what we did at Clash of the Titans? How do we, you know, we're greater than the sum of our parts. 2 + 2 = 5. You know, how do we make that happen? Right. And I think that's what we've been really trying to do with Megadeth. Is always keep it up at that level, because I think it deserves to be at that level. And when it's at that level, not only do more people get to enjoy it, but we get to enjoy it. It's a much more professional setting. You're not dealing with, you know, kind of just the you know, kind of the late night bar club kind of environment and setting, and that, because that burns you out, man. I mean, that's one way to send you to early retirement.
Right.
Is you go, you know, screw this, I don't want to do this anymore. But I think when you can keep it up at a big arena, stadium level, you know, it makes the whole experience is just so much more enjoyable. And obviously there's enough fans who support it. And if that means putting together package things where we can go out and team up with several other big groups and make it even bigger than any one of us can do on our own, then that's and I mean, again, Metallica did, that was very wise of them with the Big Four. You know, we were over there. I mean, Metallica's, you know, they can play stadiums, but it was a different experience when it was all four of us together.
For
you know,
sure.
It really was. It was a super cool moment, you know. So I think just for all of us, we're always thinking about what that sort of connection is to our audience, and that connection's always changing because of again, the more years we're around, there's always a new group of fans that come in, and so we're always conscious about how to connect with them.
Now,
what's that?
Do you have your backpack?
In the car, yeah.
It's okay.
Okay, good, thank you.
All right, see ya.
Thank you, man. See you.
now, one thing I want to say to you is, I mean, you are a true rock star. I mean, you're an icon, but watching you, dude, you're so humble, man. You're actually a really cool dude. I'm seeing you interact with the crowd, and just everything about you is like, it's not what you would expect, you know?
Yeah. Well, you know, look, I grew up on a farm. You know, I mean, you know, there was no rock stars on the farm. You know what I mean?
Right,
you
right.
got up and you worked like everybody else, and you know, I learned how to go to work. You know, and my dad, I think, you know, raised me well with that, and I had good parents. You know, I had a good upbringing, and you know, we went to church on Sunday. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
that was mandatory, and I think there's just some things about growing up like that that I guess just raise, you know, you in a different way. And again, my aspirations, you know, were obviously for, you know, the big stage and that. But, you know, for me, it wasn't about, let me just go do something to be famous. It's like, the bassist called me out of nowhere. I was a kid in a cornfield. How the hell would a bass and Kiss and rock stardom call? You know, so it's like the Lord shoneth his light upon him, you know what I mean? It's like when it's almost like out of a movie or something. And, you know, I was just sort of led, and I just kind of followed my heart and followed my passion where I was going. And you know, to me, it was always about the music, and it was always about practice so that you can be a good player, a good performer. And, you know, I went through, obviously, my drug and alcohol phase, and that just got in the way, you know, like I knew it would, even though I did it anyway. And when it caused a problem, it's like, that's got to go. That's got to go, because it will kill my passion and kill my dreams, and it'll be over, you know. So thank God, I mean, I'm one of the lucky few that got through that, you know, and was able to get to the other side of that and live a clean life. And that's, you know, so I think that's a big part of it, because I think in order to maintain sobriety and maintain clarity, you know, you got to be careful of the things that come at you. You know, there's a lot of distractions out there, right? In many forms, you know, and one of those distractions, I mean, like the spotlight can be a drug, man. I mean, it can, you know, I got to always kind of be in someone's attention, you know, and that's so it's unfortunately, you know, I've got people around me that I listen to. You know, Tom's one of them, Dave's one of them. You know, we've got management with Megadeth. I've got people around me in my Ellefson enterprises, you know, that it might be my name on the door, but and I learned that from Hartley Peavy. You know, here's Hartley, who's been in business for many years, and he's got this monolithic, huge company, Peavy. So, you know, he owns it all by himself. It's all his. And I watched him when we sat in some meetings. You know, he would listen to the people he employed. He'd listen to his engineers. He'd listen to his salespeople, and he'd sit there and he would tell us. He was a storyteller,
right?
And he'd say, "Well, I remember back in such 70s or the 80s, we tried to do this and it didn't work." You know, he had experience, so we always listened to him. But you know what? He sat back and I watched him. You know, well, I employed you, and I'm paying you to do a job, so I'm going to trust you to do your job. And I think that's the other part of it, is you got to listen to the people around you, you know what I mean? Because this is a business where there's so many people, and we know who they are, you know, that they just, I'm better than everybody, I'm bigger than everybody, and I don't need to listen to them. And it's like, man, as soon as you start pushing yourself above, it's kind of like you sort of push people down so you can rise up, you know what I mean? And it's like, man, you got to be a member amongst members, you know, even in this business. And look, we all have a role, man. My role as the bass player in Megadeth was not to be the lead singer up front, you know. But I get the spotlight. I mean, our music is written where everybody in the band gets a moment. We get a spotlight. And I think, you know, knowing as me and Tom say, stay in your lane. Some days you're meant to be in the slow lane. Other days you're meant to be in the fast lane.
Right.
And most days you're kind of right in the middle. You know what I mean? But just stay in your lane, man. And don't try to do someone else's job. Like, let them do that job.
Now, one thing I can't stress enough for people watching is if they have an opportunity to see this Basstory show, I mean, from the moment that I seen Bumblefoot come out and be his own roadie, man, putting all his stuff up there together, you know what I mean?
Right.
The end of the show, watching you interact with literally every single fan before they walked out that door, they got a handshake, at least from you, you know, I mean, minimal.
Well, the pastor at church, he shakes everybody's hand on the way out the door, you know what I mean? I saw that as a kid growing up, you know, and there's something to be said for that, you know, I mean, my own pastor said it. He goes, you know, being relational is what it's about, you know, and of course he was referencing Jesus, you know. He said, look, he started with 12. He had 12 dudes, you know, and he sent them out, you know, and that's how it grew, you know, and so I kind of think about that in our business, you know what I mean? It's like we have that moment on the stage, and that's a certain thing, but when you're off the stage, you know, Alice Cooper's another guy. You know, he got cleaned up off alcohol. He took us out on a tour of Pizzel's, and he was rebuilding his career. And You know, it was, you know, here's a guy, again, a seasoned veteran who had been through it all, man. And you know, I really saw that here's a guy, when he's on stage with that makeup on, he brings that character.
Right.
But when he steps off that stage, he can wipe that makeup off. And for him, it may be literal or figurative, but in our case, it's kind of figurative, you know, because we don't wear makeup.
Right.
But, you know, again, wipe the mask off, man. You know, like leave the game face on the stage, man, because when you're off the stage, you're back down, you know, saying, you know, keep your head in the clouds, but keep your feet on the ground, because that's where your fellow travelers are, you know.
Definitely, definitely. Now, before I let you go, I just want to know when the book's coming out and if that new Megadeth album will be in 2019 or.
Yeah, new book, More Life with Death, is we hope to have it out, honestly, by November. We had hoped to have it out as we were booking these Basstory dates, because we booked these, you know, a few months ago. And what happened is the story, quite honestly, got really, really good. And because we actually thought, well, we'll self-publish it, we'll just put it out, and it'll just kind of be a cool thing to have at the merch table. And then as we wrote the story, and the whole thing really expanded, we were like, man, I just called Tom today, dude, the story's too good to just kind of push it out, you know, and it deserves a publisher. It deserves a real push and a real support. And,
right.
And, you know, I mean, you know, I'm out here doing this. I can't be print on demand book stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I think
sure.
I realized how daunting the task was going to be. And so Jawbone is the publisher out of the UK. They've got the English rights for it, and now we can go out and we can do the sub licenses for. If we want to do Spanish, I really would want this one to be in Spanish, maybe Spanish and even German, to get that out. So honestly, that's going to probably be late summer, early fall next year.
Awesome.
So that's when that's coming out. And then yeah, the Megadeth record. I mean, look, I think we'll have something out before the Ozzy tour, you know, a song or something, you know. I think we learned with Dystopia, it's got to be great, man. That's more important than just, oh my God, we got to hurry up and put a record out, because, you know, we got you know, every record there's saying in jazz, you're only as good as your last gig.
Yeah.
Massive Megadeth record was Dystopia, you know. It was a Grammy Award winner. It was a very highly acclaimed and respected record by our fans. And it has to be great, man. Whether it's 2019, early 2020, you know, we're working on it, and it's moving along. And I think that's the main thing, is that the train has left the station.
Now, people want to follow up. They want to know more about the Basstory tour. They want to order the book. They want to know more about the coffee house, everything like that. Where do they go for you?
Well, I mean, DavidEllefson.com, all my social media kind of pushes through there, so it's sort of there. But DavidEllefsonBasstory.com is where all the tour dates and the VIP packages and everything is over there. We have a Facebook page, a Basstory Facebook page. And obviously Megadeth.com for Megadeth stuff. And then even on our social media, my Facebook / David Ellefson, we put up all the updates on the book, tour dates, various things that we're up to. EllefsonCoffeeCode.com is where all the coffee stuff is at. Perfect. We've got Instagram and Twitters for all these things as well. And AltitudesandAttitude.com is where that is. And that record's coming out in January, and I'm looking forward to it, man, because that's that's something pretty different, you know. It's definitely not a metal record, but it's believable. I mean, when you see it, you kind of go, yeah, I can totally see Dave and Frank doing this, you know. It's not like we're like in some weird departure from everything we've done and we're off doing something different, because it rocks. It's cool. It's got some kick to it, but it's fun to do something that's musically you know, something it's inside of us, you know. It's kind of nice. And I think that's one of the things we realized in Megadeth as we're going through Risk and some of that stuff, is there was music inside of us, but it shouldn't be inside of Megadeth. You know, Megadeth should be a very concise, it's kind of a small window, but that window has to have a punch to it, you know what I mean? So some of these other things, it's like, you know what, better to take them away from Megadeth and over here and let them kind of, you know, plant them and let them kind of grow in their own little garden away from that.
Well, I mean, it's cool that you have all these other outlets to go ahead and show different sides of you.
Those guys are taking off. See you guys. The band's leaving.
All right.
No, it is. It is for sure. And I'm very fortunate. I mean, look, if we'd only done one Megadeth record and everybody's off doing side stuff, I think would not be a good look, you know. But I think, you know, we've been doing this a long time. Obviously, we've established what Megadeth is, who we are inside of that, and either through authoring books, Basstory, Altitudes and Attitude, Metal Allegiance, you know, to have a couple of other things to go out and have some musical moments with some friends. I always come back into Megadeth tours and Megadeth records feeling much stronger, more kind of experienced, you know, and it's just, you know, I think the more you play, the more you learn, the better you get. And I went through many years ago, back in probably the 90s, were big years. We do these albums with big, long tours, and you know, they're pretty exhausting. You come home and it's like you're like, oh, I don't even want to see a guitar. I don't want to play. I just want to just melt on the couch, and that can be a bit of a burnout. So I'm finding that this little season I'm in now is fun to be able to pick the guitar up and, you know, if it's not a Megadeth song, maybe it's something else. And probably after a month on the road with me and Frank, it'll be fun to get back into jamming some Megadeth tunes again, right. You know. So it's nice to have a little bit of some variety, you know, to just alleviate burnout and keep it fresh.
For sure, man.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much for your time.
Man.
I appreciate everything.
Thanks.